As the President said last week, the United States proudly stands with the people of Venezuela, who have courageously spoken out against the corrupt and illegitimate regime of Nicolas Maduro. Maduro must do what's right and allow for free, fair, and credible elections in accordance with democratic principles. To speak more about U.S. policy towards Venezuela and to take your questions, I'd like to welcome to the podium National Security Advisor, Ambassador John Bolton, Secretary of the Treasury, Steven Mnuchin, and Director of the National Economic Council, Larry Kudlow. And after that, I will be up to take other questions of the day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Sarah. As you know, on January the 23rd, President Trump officially recognized the President of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Juan Guaido, as the interim President of Venezuela. Venezuela's National Assembly invoked Article 233 of the country's constitution to declare Nicolas Maduro illegitimate. This action was a statement that the people of Venezuela have had enough of oppression, corruption, and economic hardship. Since then, 21 other governments in the region and across the world have joined the United States in recognizing Guaido as Venezuela's interim president. Today, and I'll turn the podium over to Steven Mnuchin for this purpose, we're going to announce sanctions against Petróleos de Venezuela, Sociedad Anima, or PDVSA, as it's known by its Spanish acronym, the state-owned oil monopoly. We have continued to expose the corruption of Maduro and his cronies, and today's action ensures they can no longer loot the assets of the Venezuelan people. We expect, and Secretary Mnuchin will go into this in more detail, that today's measure totals $7 billion in assets blocked today, plus over $11 billion in lost export proceeds over the next year.
Thank you. Today, Treasury took action against Venezuela's state-owned oil company, PDVSA, to help prevent the further diversion of Venezuela's assets by former President Maduro. The United States is holding accountable those responsible for Venezuela's tragic decline. We will continue to use all of our diplomatic and economic tools to support interim President Guaido, the National Assembly, and the Venezuelan people's efforts to restore their democracy. PDVSA has long been a vehicle for embezzlement, for corruption, for Venezuelan officials and businessmen. Today's designation of PDVSA will help prevent further diversion of Venezuela's assets by Maduro and will preserve these assets for the people of Venezuela where they belong.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Secretary. There have been reports that there are an estimated 25,000 Cuban troops in Venezuela, troops or secret police, which is a clear violation of the OAS Charter, Chapter 4, Article 21, about troops of another country in a sovereign nation. Will the United States raise a complaint, if nothing else, with the Havana regime about troops in Venezuela?
As you know, Secretary of State Pompeo addressed the OAS General Assembly a few days ago. We expect other meetings of the OAS on this and related subjects in the coming days because, as both Secretary Mnuchin and I have said, we know what the legitimate government of Venezuela is. And it's our mission now to make a full reality in Venezuela what the people of Venezuela themselves want.
Has the president spoken directly with President Guaido? If so, can you summarize that conversation? And how safe does the president believe our diplomats are currently?
The vice president has had several conversations with interim President Guaido, including most recently the night before we granted recognition. He'll be meeting with interim President Guaido's ambassador here in the near future. In terms of American official personnel, has been an absolute top priority for President Trump, the Vice President, Secretary Pompeo, and myself. We have drawn down significantly personnel at the embassy. All dependent personnel are gone. We believe we are now prepared as we can be. We're reevaluating the safety conditions at all time, and it's why we have said we've presented credentials to interim President Guaido. We recognize him as the legitimate president. He has asked for us to stay. We have made very clear to what's left of the Maduro regime, that we hold them responsible, and we take their commitment to do that very seriously.
In the back. Yes.
Ambassador Bolton, if I may ask you, what is your assessment of the relationship between Nicolas Maduro and his military? Do you believe support is fracturing? And do you believe that the Russians are playing any kind of role in trying to support the military?
Well, our assessment, based on numerous contacts on the ground, is that the rank and file of the Venezuelan military is acutely aware of the desperate economic conditions in the country. And we think they look for ways to support the National Assembly government. We think the junior officer ranks and the mid-level officer ranks are the same. And we are also aware of significant contacts between general officers of the Venezuelan military and supporters of the National Assembly. So you may have seen a statement last week by the defense minister, Vladimir Pedrino, flanked by a number of generals in uniform. What they didn't know was how many of them were already talking to the National Assembly.